In 2016, the Lord began to stir in Andrew and me a vision for doing something new.
We lived in a big city that seemed great on the surface. Lots of people, smiling faces, exciting growth. But we also began to see something different.
Behind a lot of action and smiles were anxious minds and hurting hearts. God began to show us not just the beauty, but also the brokenness around us.
And the more we looked around, the more we felt burdened to do something about it.
The reality is we had very little direction, resources, or momentum, but we knew we had a big God with a big mission, and we believed God might use us to bring hope to those hurting.
So we began a journey to help reach a lost and broken city. And although we had some ideas and dreams, we had no idea what God had in store for our church family.
So we started. In the fall of 2016, we asked some people to join us in planning a new church in Omaha.
We set a date, shuffled a few people into a living room, and began to pray.
By January of 2017, we outgrew the house we were meeting in, so we launched 5 city groups meeting throughout the city. No Sunday gatherings, no high-level organization. All we were at this point was small communities of people meeting in different houses, just praying, singing, and eating together. After a few months, we set a date in April for our church to gather on a Sunday. Around 100 people were looking to us to lead, but we had no physical location to meet. Building after building didn't work out to meet in, and the scary thing was that people were trusting us. Hey church, Jared and Andrew here, and as you may know, we had an all-church meeting this last Sunday where we gave you a couple big announcements. And
that night we prayed together, and it was such a unifying experience as we asked God for His guidance. And honestly, I think that was a pretty pivotal moment for our church. And later that week, God provided us a space to meet. We officially signed papers to meet in the Pella at Blackstone the Friday before our first Sunday gathering.
Hey Providence Church, Jared and Andrew here. We are very excited because we are only a few days away from our core team launch. We are standing here at the corner of 41st and Hardy.
So we met for 4 months every Sunday to share a meal, sing, pray, and to form the vision of this church and to break into small groups to discuss how could we live this out as a new community. It was some of the most special Sundays in the life of our church, and the community continued to grow.
Finally, on September 10th, 2017, we officially and publicly launched Providence Church.
Hey everyone, Andrew and Jared here, and we are excited to announce the public launch of Providence Church.
It was a surreal moment. It was a year in the making, a year of recruiting, a year of praying, a year of dreaming, a year of taking wild steps of faith, a year filled with wonder, a year believing God was going to do something amazing. We saw people come to faith, grow as a family, and love the Lord deeply.
Before coming into Providence, I was broken. I made excuses for everyone and everything. I needed something bigger than myself to help me get back on track. I was 2 blocks away at Santa Monica, and we were given an option one day to go to a meeting or go to church, and I knew that I needed to be at church. He was like, I need you to hear me. You have a purpose, and it's time for you to live that purpose. And when I got to Omaha and ran into Providence, you guys guided me. You embraced me and showed me what it was like to just sit and listen to God's word and feel safe. And I learned from you. I learned what it looks like to have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
After 2 years at the Pella, we decided to move our church gatherings to the Thompson Alumni Center on the University of Omaha's campus. We moved at the end of 2019, and it was like a relaunch to some extent. We had renewed vision, we reached out to new people, and in many ways, I felt like after 4 months of meeting there, we were in the healthiest spot our church had ever been in.
When we transitioned from North Carolina to Omaha, we were looking for a home, a family church that we could call our own and to be a part of that community. And so Providence really opened us up with open arms. We walked through the door, received hugs. All our kids were running around and playing with other children. And so it's just a unique, welcoming environment, and that's what we were looking for.
Then COVID
Today
hit.
I am officially declaring a national emergency.
Call off our gatherings for tomorrow morning, so we
So
won't
that
be
means
gathering.
on Sundays as well as city groups will just be canceled for the next couple weeks.
After 5 months at the TAC, we canceled all in-person gatherings and moved to hosting virtual gatherings. But as hard as that was, even that season was marked by God's providence. We had no idea what was next, but God provided through our church family again. A man in our church offered up an amazing space to record. We had some incredible people to help out with video, audio, and putting everything together so that we could make the best out of a bad situation. It wasn't ideal, but God was faithful to serve our church in the best way during that season.
In fact, we even saw God begin to reach people through these online gatherings.
But I pray that tonight we will feel the weight of the crucifixion.
I remember in the midst of COVID just praying in my room for the first time in forever, praying for some sort of good news. And then out of the blue, Rachel texted me the Easter service of Providence, and I watched it. Didn't really understand it, but I loved it, and I kept watching it that whole summer, realizing that I needed to actually take a step of faith and go into a community. So I started going to church at Providence here at Midtown, and I really just had a moment where I was like, this is what I want. I want Jesus. And that was only the beginning of my new life with Jesus.
Even through a pandemic, crazy political and social climates, and less than ideal church gatherings, the Lord was still faithful to move. But at the end of 2020, we had another unforeseen challenge.
In November, I had a grand mal seizure that almost took my life. It left me in the ICU for a week and began the start of a year-long journey toward a kidney transplant. I honestly never thought something of that magnitude was coming. After the seizure, I had temporary brain and heart damage on top of the chronic kidney disease. There were weeks at the end of that year that I wondered if I would ever be a pastor again. But this too was all under the gracious providence of God. We had always said that the church was a family, that the church cares for one another, that the church is all in with each other. And while I had preached that vision for 3 years, I felt the reality of that vision in the deepest way in 2021. Our church gifted my family money, made us meals, prayed for us, did yard work for us, wrote cards, watched our kids, and consistently checked in. It was by far the hardest year of our lives, and the constant was God's faithfulness and care through our church family.
Maddie and I were searching for a true church community to start out our marriage, and we found it in Providence. And through that, we found some of our best friends now today. It was just crazy how God orchestrated the whole thing. And through seeing them regularly, we became best friends, and ultimately, as soon as we were told that he needed a kidney and he needed to find a donor, my wife Maddie and I, we were one of the first ones to sign up.
So in October 2021, Alex donated his kidney to me. We had the surgery and God answered our prayers for healing. Immediately, the kidney started working and I began to heal.
But as God so often does, he began to work powerfully through all these trials. Our church moved back to UNO's campus. We saw our college ministry begin to reach more and more people for Christ. Our city groups multiplied and expanded to new parts of the city. Our kids ministry began to take off with new families. We helped fund a couple church plants domestically and overseas, and we saw growth as new people joined our community.
I think this is a hallmark of the work of God. In some of the most unknown, challenging, and dark times, God was faithful to do something beautiful.
What our eyes could merely see as sporadic dark paint strokes, God could see as the beginning strokes of a masterpiece.
That need for hope we saw 5 years ago began to meet real brokenness in real ways. A church began through joys and tears. A family has been formed through beauty and ashes.
A community has been shaped by celebrations and trials, and all this has happened by the providence of God.
Today, we can say that we are fully dependent on God's providence in all that we do. And He has reminded us of that time and time again. I can honestly say that I would not want these last 5 years to have gone any other way. His providence has led us through everything. and it will be His providence that leads us in years to come.